My name is Mia Lawson, and I'm 20 years old. 3 days ago, I blew out the candles on my 20th birthday cake, surrounded by people who actually love me. But the birthday that really changed everything, the one that ripped my family open from the inside, was my 18th. Back then, if you'd asked me to define family, I would have said, people who make you feel like an unwanted guest in your own house. I live, or rather, used to live, with my mom, my stepdad, and my 15-year-old stepsister, Kayla. Saying Kayla and I didn't get along is like saying fire and gasoline have mild tension. She was arrogant, mean, and constantly needed to be the center of attention. Every conversation, every family photo, somehow revolved around her. We didn't just have disagreements like Mom liked to pretend. We genuinely hated each other. My dad died when I was 3. I don't remember his voice or the way his hand felt when I held it. I only remember the silence he left behind and the fights that filled it. Mom and I clashed over everything growing up. I was the kid who climbed trees, played sports, and could tell you more about cars than lip gloss. Mom wanted a daughter who wore dresses, curled her hair, and practiced eyeliner in the bathroom mirror. "Why can't you just be a little more feminine, Mia?" she'd sigh, shoving a sparkly dress against my chest. "Because I'm not you," I'd mutter, already bracing for the argument. She wanted a mini version of herself. I wanted to be me. And that gap between who she wanted and who I was, it never closed. It just turned into resentment on both sides. When I was 16, she remarried. My stepdad, Daniel, was a pediatrician. On paper, he was perfect. Kind eyes, good stable job, patient with kids. In reality, he came with a bonus, his biological daughter, Kayla. From the first day they moved in, Kayla was a problem wrapped in designer leggings. If I wore a t-shirt, she wore a crop top. If I got a B+, she accidentally left her A paper where my mom would see it. If I sat on the couch, she'd come flop down next to Mom like she lived there and I was the guest. "Kayla just wants everyone to have fun," my stepdad would say every time she made some snide comment about my clothes or my hair. "This is just normal sibling rivalry," Mom would add, dismissing me with a wave of her hand. "You'll both grow out of it." But I knew the truth. This wasn't rivalry. It was a competition I'd never signed up for, one I was always meant to lose. Kayla was the golden child, for both of them. Of course, Daniel would take his daughter's side. She was his blood. That hurt, but it made sense. What didn't make sense was my own mother bending over backwards, always defending Kayla, always making excuses for her. For Kayla, Mom became the mother I had begged her to be for me. Sleepovers, shopping trips, movie nights, long heart-to-heart talks in the kitchen. I used to stand in this hallway and listen to their laughter. My chest would ache like someone had reached into my ribs and twisted. I was still there, still her daughter. I just didn't count anymore. So I made my own escape plan. I threw myself into lacrosse with everything I had. Practices, training, weekend tournaments. I was never home more than I had to be. Pain in my legs was easier to handle than pain in my chest. It paid off. By senior year, I had a sports scholarship lined up. I'd been accepted to the college I wanted, and in a few months I'd be gone. Finally. My 18th birthday was supposed to be my last birthday at home, my last official celebration in that house. I had this stupid, fragile hope that Mom would at least try. A small cake, a dinner, "We're proud of you, Mia. Good luck at college." I should have known better. The day itself felt weirdly ordinary. No balloons, no special breakfast. Kayla hogged the TV, scrolling on her phone while some influencers shrieked through the speakers. Mom and Daniel were at work. I told myself maybe they were planning something for later. By the afternoon, the house was quiet. Kayla had gone out. I was in my room scrolling through birthday messages from friends. "We'll do something tonight." "College girl," when Mom knocked. "Can we talk?" she asked. Those 3 words never meant anything good. She led me to the dining table, the same place we'd fought 100 times. No cake, no decorations, just her serious face and a stack of unpaid bills near her elbow. "Mia, you're an adult now," she started. I almost laughed. "Great, here it comes." "You know Kayla will be starting college in a few years," she continued. "She doesn't have a sports scholarship like you, and her grades, well, you know they're not like yours." I nodded slowly, saying nothing. I knew where this was going, and I already hated it. "So," she said, folding her hands neatly, "your stepdad and I have decided to start a college fund for Kayla. We need to begin saving now so we're not overwhelmed later." "Okay, I said carefully. And what does that have to do with me? Mom sighed in that disappointed way she did whenever I didn't immediately agree with her. As a member of this household, she said, you need to pitch in. You're going to college on a scholarship. You'll have more flexibility than Kayla will. It's only fair that you start contributing to her college fund. I stared at her, sure I'd misheard. You want me to pay for Kayla's college? I asked slowly. Not all of it, she shrugged. Just a reasonable share. You can get a part-time job. You'll be an adult, Mia. It's time you learn to be responsible. I felt my stomach drop, cold and heavy. And if I don't? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't blink. Then you won't be welcome to live here anymore, she said. When you come home from college, this will no longer be your home if you refuse to help. We're not supporting someone who doesn't support the family. I stared at the woman who gave birth to me and realized I was expendable. I knew they weren't broke. Mom's a nurse. Daniel's a pediatrician. They work at the same hospital, for God's sake. If anyone could afford tuition, it was them. But instead of supporting both daughters, they wanted the one they barely tolerated to financially support the one they adored. I hate Kayla, I blurted out before I could stop myself. She treats me like trash. She doesn't even like me. Why would I pay for her future? Mom's eyes flashed. Watch your mouth, she snapped. She's your sister. She's your favorite, I shot back. Not my sister. Mom inhaled sharply, like I'd slapped her, but she didn't deny it. That hurt more than if she'd screamed. I'm not discussing this any further, she said. You will contribute, or you won't be coming back here after your first semester. It's your choice. Easy for her to say. If I refused, where would I go on holidays? What about after graduation? I pictured myself with a degree and nowhere to sleep. No home, no safety net. I went back to my room and sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall. My friends were texting about dinner plans, outfits, drinks. I just felt hollow. There was one thing I knew for sure. If I told anyone in this house how unfair this was, they'd twist it. Daniel would say I misunderstood. Mom would cry and act like I was ungrateful. Kayla would smirk and call me dramatic. But my grandparents, they might listen. Mom's parents lived just a few streets away. I wasn't allowed to visit them alone. Mom always acted like they were fragile, like I'd stress them out if I talked about anything real. They're old, she'd say. They don't need drama. Keep it light. They were in their early 60s, healthier than half the people I knew. I'd broken her rule once in junior year and gone by myself. Mom lost her mind when she found out. I never did it again. Until that day. If I was going to ask my grandparents to stand up to their own daughter, I had to make sure they believed me. Not just my words. Proof. Hands shaking, I grabbed my phone and opened the voice recorder app. I walked back into the living room where Mom was still at the table, scrolling through her phone. Hey, Mom, I said lightly, trying to sound casual. Can you just repeat what you said earlier about what you expect from me when I go to college? I want to make sure I got everything right. She frowned at me, already annoyed. I already explained it, she muttered. I know, I said, but it's a lot. Please, just once more? She rolled her eyes but started talking. I kept the phone angled down, screen dark, the little red timer quietly ticking in my hand. She repeated the whole thing. Kayla's future tuition, my responsibility to contribute, the ultimatum that if I didn't pay, I wouldn't be allowed to live there anymore. When she finished, I stopped the recording and smiled. Okay, I said. Thanks. I'm going out with friends now. I'll tell you my decision when I get back. Don't stay out too late, she replied, already half distracted. I went to my room, grabbed my jacket and my wallet, but instead of texting my friends, I typed out a different message. Be there later. Something came up. Then I walked out of the house, my heart pounding so hard it was hard to breathe. Every step toward my grandparents' street felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. Mom had forbidden unsupervised visits. She'd made it clear. Her rules, her version of the story, her control. But that day it hit me. Maybe that was exactly the problem. By the time I reached their front door, my palms were slick with sweat. I could feel the phone in my pocket, the recording that might blow my mother's life apart. I rang the doorbell. My grandma opened it, her face lighting up when she saw me. Mia, honey, what a surprise. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. Grandma, I said, stepping inside, I need to tell you something, and I really need you to believe me. The moment I stepped inside my grandparents' house, it felt like I'd crossed into a different world. It smelled like cinnamon and old books. The TV was low in the background. My grandpa was in his usual armchair, glasses perched on his nose, newspaper in hand. My grandma led me in by the shoulders like she could tell I might bolt if she let go. You look pale, sweetheart, she said softly. What's wrong? I'd come here intending to talk calmly, to present facts, to be logical. Instead, the second I tried to talk, my voice cracked. Mom said, if I don't pay for Kayla's college, I won't have a home to come back to, I blurted out, and my eyes instantly filled with tears. She wants me to get a job and help fund Kayla's tuition, or I'm not welcome there anymore. My grandpa slowly folded his newspaper and set it down. His eyes, usually gentle, darkened. What do you mean, not welcome? He asked. I pulled my phone out with shaking hands. I recorded her, I said. You have to hear this. Otherwise she'll say I misunderstood or that I'm lying. She always makes it sound like I overreact. My grandma glanced at my grandpa, then back at me. Play it, she said quietly. I pressed play. We sat in silence as my mother's voice filled their cozy living room. Her tone, her words, the cold clarity when she said, if you won't contribute, you won't be welcome to live here anymore. Even I got a chill hearing it again. When the recording ended, my grandpa's jaw was clenched so tight, I could see the muscle twitch in his cheek. My grandma had one hand over her mouth, eyes glossy. She said it's my responsibility as an adult, I whispered, that Kayla doesn't have a scholarship, so I'm the one who has to help. And if I don't, I lose my home. And she's made you feel unwelcome there for how long? My grandpa asked, his voice rough. I let out a bitter laugh. Since Kayla walked through the door, I said. I tried so hard to get Mom to like me for who I am, but she wanted a girly girl, not me. Then Kayla shows up, and suddenly Mom has her perfect daughter. The words kept tumbling out, stuff I hadn't meant to say, stuff I'd kept locked up for years. I told them about Kayla's snide comments and fake smiles, about Mom dismissing everything as sibling rivalry, about how I'd been blocked from visiting them alone because they were too fragile, how every call had to be light and happy so they wouldn't worry. I wasn't allowed to tell you anything real, I choked out. She said you were too weak for drama, but you're not. She just didn't want you to know what's actually going on. My grandma's hand slid from her mouth to my shoulder. She squeezed, her fingers trembling. We're not made of glass, sweetheart, she murmured. We are your grandparents. We are supposed to know when you're hurting. My grandpa stood up slowly. When he spoke, his voice carried a steel I rarely heard. She used us, he said. Used our love for her to control you, and now she's threatening to put you on the street unless you finance her stepdaughter? He walked to the window and stared out for a long moment, breathing hard through his nose. When he turned back, he didn't look angry. He looked resolved. This stops now, he said. Grandpa, I started, panic flaring. Please don't yell at her because of me. She'll just blame me and Mia. He looked me dead in the eyes. She already blames you. She already punishes you. The difference now is that we know. My grandma brushed my hair back from my face. We're going to take care of this, she said, but we don't want you there when we do. She stood up and disappeared into their bedroom. When she came back, she pressed a folded bill into my hand. I unfolded it and stared, a crisp $100 bill. Grandma, I can't. Yes, you can, she said firmly. It's your 18th birthday. Go out with your friends, have dinner, buy yourself cake if nobody else will. You deserve one day that isn't ruined by your mother's selfishness. I shook my head, tears spilling over. I don't want to leave you to deal with her. My grandpa rested a hand on my shoulder. Mia, listen to me. You've been dealing with her alone for years, he said. Let us carry it this time. We should have stepped in sooner. We didn't. That's on us. But we're stepping in now. There was something in his tone that scared me a little, but not in a bad way. It was the feeling of an earthquake starting far beneath your feet. You don't see it, but you know everything is about to shift. Will you actually be able to do anything? I asked quietly. He exchanged a look with my grandma. There was history in that look. Decades of marriage, secrets they knew that I didn't. Yes, he said, we will. They hugged me tight and shooed me out the door with instructions to go be 18 for at least a few hours. My phone buzzed with messages from my friends, so I went. We had burgers and milkshakes, joked about dorm life, took photos. I laughed, but it felt like my body was on autopilot, my brain replaying my mother's words over and over. You're not welcome to live here if you don't help. By the time my friends insisted on one last picture, me in the middle, them kissing my cheeks, I checked the time and realized it was almost 9 p.m. Just then, a message popped up on my screen. It was from Grandma. Come back to our house tonight. Don't go home. Love you. My heart dropped. Something had happened. The walk back felt longer in the dark. Streetlights buzzed, throwing thin circles of light onto the pavement. My hands were cold, even though the night wasn't. When I opened my grandparents' front door, they were sitting at the table, waiting. No TV, no background noise, just silence. "Sit down, sweetheart," my grandma said. I did. My grandpa took off his glasses, folded them, and set them aside. "We talked to your mother," he said. My stomach clenched. "What did she say?" "At first, we gave her the benefit of the doubt," he replied. "We told her what you told us, asked if it was true." "And?" I whispered. "She didn't deny it," he said flatly. "In fact, she said exactly what you recorded, that you're an adult now, that you need to give back to the family, that if you refuse to help fund Kayla's college, you can't live there anymore." I stared at the table, my eyes burning. Grandma spoke next, her voice shaking. We asked her if she understood how cruel that was, to threaten her own child with homelessness over money for someone else's education. "And she said," Grandpa continued, "that you're grown now and her priority is her new family." New family. Like I had expired and been replaced. I looked up, feeling like I wasn't quite inside my own body. "So that's it?" I asked hoarsely. "She chose them, over me, again." My grandpa took a deep breath, then dropped the bomb that blew everything apart. "Mia," he said slowly, "do you know whose name is on the deed to that house you've been living in?" I blinked. "Mom's? Yours and Grandma's? I don't know." "It's mine," he said. "Your grandmother and I bought that house as a wedding gift when your parents married. We always meant to transfer it legally to them. We just never did. The deed is still in my name." It took a second for that to register. "Wait," I said. "So, the house is yours, legally." He nodded. "Which means your mother has been threatening to throw you out of a house that technically isn't even hers to begin with." Anger flared hot in my chest. "Are you serious?" "I wish I weren't," he said. "We gave her a choice tonight. We told her she could retract what she said, apologize to you, and start treating you as her daughter. Or she could leave that house, and we would give it to you instead." My heart started pounding again, loud in my ears. "And?" I asked. My grandma's eyes filled with tears. "She chose to leave," she whispered. Silence crashed over us. "She said you're too much trouble and that her priority is Daniel and Kayla now," Grandpa added, his voice low. "So we told her she has 1 week to move out, or we file to evict her." I thought I'd cry. Instead, I laughed. This horrible, broken sound. "So she'd rather lose the house than admit she was wrong," I said. Of course she would. I wanted to be angry, but underneath it was something worse. That old, familiar ache of not being chosen, of not being enough. Grandpa reached across the table and took my hand. "Mia," he said gently, "this isn't about your worth. This is about her selfishness." "We're transferring the house to you," Grandma added. "It's going to be in your name. We will help you manage everything until you're ready." My head spun. A few hours ago, I'd been terrified of having nowhere to go. Now I was being told the house I grew up in would be mine. I didn't know what to feel. Relief, rage, grief, all of it tangled up, pressing against my rib cage. I don't want to kick her out," I whispered. "I just didn't want to be kicked out either. Does that make sense?" Grandpa squeezed my hand. "We're not doing this just because of today," he said. "It's years of behavior, Mia. The way she has treated you, the way she's been treating us. We have begged her to let you visit more, talk to us more. She always had an excuse. Now we know why." "She kept us away from you," Grandma said softly, "for her own comfort, not for our health." I stared at the table. I felt like a little kid again, watching my mother walk ahead of me and never once turning back to see if I was keeping up. That night, I slept in the guest room at my grandparents' house. The bed was softer, the air quieter. But my mind wouldn't shut off. Mom had chosen them, again, but this time there was a consequence. The next day, around noon, Grandpa drove me back to the house to collect my clothes and essentials. It was strange walking up to the door, knowing this place was about to stop being their home and might become mine. When we walked in, everyone was there. Mom, Daniel, Kayla. They all stared as if I were a stranger. I didn't say a word. I walked straight past them to my room. Grandpa followed, carrying an empty duffel. We folded clothes in silence for about 10 minutes before my door opened. "Mia," Mom said, "I need to talk to you, alone." "I'm busy," I muttered, shoving a hoodie into the bag. "Please," she insisted, "just 5 minutes." Grandpa looked at me. I could tell he didn't like it, but this was something I had to face. "I'll be right outside," he said, and stepped into the hallway. Mom closed the door and turned toward me, eyes already glossy with unshed tears. "This got out of control," she began. "I need you to fix it." I laughed without humor. "You want me to fix the fact that you told your parents you'd rather move out than stop threatening your own kid with homelessness?" She winced. "I was bluffing, okay?" she snapped, then softened her voice. I wasn't actually going to kick you out. I was just trying to teach you responsibility with money. By telling me I'd have no home, I stared at her. That's your idea of a lesson? She paced a few steps, wringing her hands. The plan was to put whatever money you sent into a separate account, she insisted. For you, for your future. I was going to give it back to you later. I just wanted to see if you'd be willing to help your family. My brain stalled. So you're saying this was all some test? I asked slowly. A weird manipulative test where you lie to your own daughter and threaten her security to see if she's a good person? She flinched. Don't say it like that. How else am I supposed to say it? Tears spilled down her cheeks. If you'd just talked to me, instead of running to my parents, I would have told you the truth, she said. Now they think I'm a monster, and they're kicking me out of my own house. It's not your house, I said quietly. It's theirs. She glared at me like I'd betrayed her. You went behind my back, she hissed. You turned my own parents against me. I opened my mouth, then closed it. For a moment, she dropped the anger and let desperation show. Mia, I can't move out on such short notice. I can't uproot Kayla like this. You need to talk to your grandpa. Tell him you misunderstood. Fix this. There it was again. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I was wrong. Just fix this. I can't, I whispered. I won't. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. Then her voice cracked. I didn't mean for you to get hurt, she said. I do love you. I always wanted the best for you. I just wanted you to grow up. I looked at her, really looked at her. For a second, I saw something almost human beneath all the control and pride. But I couldn't tell if it was real remorse or just another tactic. I don't know what to believe anymore, I said quietly. It's simple, she replied. Believe your mother. But that was the thing. If I'd believed her all these years, I'd still be alone in that house, begging for scraps of love while she held the roof over my head like a weapon. I said nothing. She sighed shakily, wiped her cheeks, and walked out, leaving the door half open. I sank onto my bed, anger and guilt twisting together in my chest. What if she really had planned to save the money for me? What if I had overreacted? What if I'd blown up her life for nothing? But another voice, quieter, more tired, whispered, or what if this is just one more lie in a long line of lies? I didn't know. All I knew was that whatever I did next would change everything for good. For 2 full days, I couldn't shake the guilt. Even when my grandparents assured me I'd done nothing wrong. Even when my friends told me my mother's responsibility lesson sounded like psychological warfare. Even when I replayed that recording and heard every cold, deliberate word. A part of me still wondered if I had just destroyed my mother's life over a misunderstanding. I hated that I felt guilty. I hated that she still had that kind of power over me. On the 3rd morning, my grandpa knocked on my bedroom door with 2 mugs of hot cocoa. He sat at the edge of the bed and handed me one. Your grandmother says you haven't been eating properly, he said lightly. I told her you're 20, nearly grown. She told me to stop talking nonsense and bring you cocoa. Despite everything, I smiled. He cleared his throat. Your grandmother told me what your mother said to you yesterday, he said more quietly, about the money being secretly saved for you. I stared at the steam rising from my mug. I don't know if she meant it, I murmured. Grandpa let out a slow exhale. I think you do. I swallowed. What if she really didn't want to hurt me? He looked at me with a softness that made my chest ache. Sweetheart, hurting you is the one thing she's been consistent about. I stared at him, stung. Your mother's not a villain, he added, but she's spent years putting you second. This is not new. What's new is that we finally know. I didn't say anything. He continued, there's a way to know if she was telling the truth. I lifted my eyes. How? We test her claim. My heart thumped harder. What do you mean? You call her, he said, and tell her you're willing to trust her, but only if she agrees to transfer the house to you now, before you leave for college. If she truly intended to save that money for you, she'll understand. And if she wasn't being honest, she'll show you who she really is, he said. I stared into my mug for a long moment. Grandpa didn't push. He never did. That's what made me trust him. Finally, I whispered, okay. He nodded. We'll be right here with you. But I shook my head. No, I need to do this alone. I stepped outside onto the porch, shut the door behind me, and dialed her number. My hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped the phone. The call connected. Hello? Mom answered sharply. Her voice was clipped, cold, like she'd been waiting. I took a breath. Mom, I've been thinking, I said. A pause, then, about time. I swallowed my hurt. I talked to Grandma and Grandpa, I continued, and I think it might be best if the house is transferred to me now, just so I feel secure with everything that's happened. Silence. Then her voice rose, incredulous. So you don't trust me? It's not about trust, I said. I just want security. And you said the money you were asking for was going to be saved for me later anyway, right? So this shouldn't be a problem. It's protection for all of us." Another long silence. Then she laughed, this bitter, humorless sound. "You're unbelievable," she snapped. "After everything I've done for you, you still want to punish me. You're siding with them, with my parents, over me." "I'm not punishing you," I whispered. "I just need—" "Need what?" she barked. "Control? Power? You think you deserve that house more than I do? I raised you." My throat tightened. "You said you never meant to hurt me. This would prove it." "Oh, stop," she said, disgusted. "If you trusted me like a normal daughter, we wouldn't even be having this conversation." Something inside me cracked. "I've tried trusting you," I said quietly, "my whole life, and every time I do, I get hurt." She sucked in a breath like I'd stabbed her. "So that's what you think of me." I didn't answer. The silence stretched. Then her voice turned icy. "You know what? Go to hell, Mia." My chest tightened. "I don't want a daughter like you," she spat. "Ungrateful, vindictive, just like your father's side." I didn't hear the rest. I ended the call. The phone slipped from my fingers onto the porch step as my knees wobbled beneath me. I pressed a hand over my mouth to stop whatever was about to break out of my chest. There it was, the truth, raw and ugly. Not a misunderstanding, not a lesson, not love in disguise. Just resentment and cruelty and the unmistakable fact that my mother wanted out of being my mother. The guilt evaporated like smoke. The next few days passed in a blur. My grandparents contacted an attorney they trusted. Paperwork was filed. Meetings were held. Forms were signed. I barely understood half of it, but Grandpa explained everything slowly and clearly. By the end of the week, the house, my childhood home, was officially mine. When the lawyer placed the finalized document in front of me, my hands shook. I'd never owned anything bigger than my laptop. Now I owned a house. Grandma squeezed my shoulder. "This is security," she told me. "For your future, for your peace." I nodded, still stunned. Meanwhile, Mom was packing. At first, she threatened not to leave. Then she cried. Then she begged. Then she raged. Eventually, she accepted reality. Or maybe she just got tired. She and Daniel found a small apartment near Kayla's school. It wasn't terrible, just smaller, tighter. Mom texted the move-out date. "We'll be gone by Friday. Don't show up early." I didn't respond. On Friday afternoon, Grandpa and I drove to the house to pick up the keys. Mom was standing outside, arms crossed, looking like she was about to face a firing squad. Kayla hovered behind her, sulking. Mom extended the keyring toward me. Her fingers were stiff. Mine were steady. "Here," she said sharply. "Congratulations on ruining your mother's life." Her voice was dripping with spite, not sorrow. I took the keys. "I didn't ruin your life," I replied quietly. "You pushed me out of yours." She scoffed, shaking her head. "You'll regret this someday." "Maybe," I said honestly, "but I won't regret protecting myself." Her eyes flashed with something. Anger, disappointment, maybe even fear. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say more, but then she turned away. Daniel nodded stiffly at us. Kayla didn't look back. I watched them walk to their car. For a moment, I felt the ghost of the little girl inside me, the one who used to beg for her mother's attention, reaching after them. But the adult me didn't move. Not one step. That night, I sat in my old bedroom, my room, in my house, typing on my old laptop, while my grandparents discussed furniture arrangements in the living room. They'd decided to sell their own house and move here permanently so they could help maintain the place while I was away at college. The idea of coming home to them instead of Mom. It warmed something deep inside me that I thought had died years ago. Grandma called out, "Do you want tea, sweetheart?" I looked around the room. The posters, the familiar creaking floor, the window I used to open when I needed fresh air after a fight with Mom. For once, the air felt light. "Safe." "I do," I answered, smiling. When Grandma brought the mug in, she kissed the top of my head the way Mom never did. "You deserve a peaceful home," she whispered. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. I have college starting soon, a whole new life ahead, one where I won't have to wonder whether I'm enough, one where I won't have to earn